All right. I think we're ready. Shan, you want to kick us off here?
Yes, welcome everybody to the roundtable with Applied Art. We have George and Mark are here with us. They're the founding
What?
partners of Applied Art. I'm a business development manager, and our special guest, who I think just maybe got kicked off, is
Oh,
there.
I'm
There you
here. Hi,
are.
everyone.
Okay. Mindy Toyne, who is the owner of In Any Event in downtown Des Moines. She started that company in 2004. She's a full service event planning organization, and she comes with a decade, hard to believe though, by the way she looks, of an agency experience. So she's got a lot of insight, and we're looking forward to a good conversation. Particularly with Mindy, she's got a couple of projects she's working on with Des Moines Waterworks Park, and their amphitheater is something that I think will be interesting, and maybe a new restaurant downtown as part of the Full Court Press team. So welcome, Mindy. We look forward and appreciate you being here with us.
Oh, I'm so happy to join you guys. Thanks for the invitation.
So where do you want to start? You want to tell us a little bit about what these two projects are that you mentioned?
Sure. I think, we talked real briefly as we were joining each other late this morning that, how are we looking at the climate now and trying to take a challenge that none of us have ever faced and hopefully won't ever face again, but it's, we're not through this yet. And how have people pivoted their business plans and, use that to create new opportunities. So we do have the hospitality industry as a sector that we've focused on with our business strategies. I grew up in the restaurant business, so that's always been a natural fit for me outside of our full service, full larger festival productions is our specialty. So by and large, our business has been shut down since mid-March, by mandate. And so we have been fortunate to be able to still help clients. I'll start with the amphitheater is a great example. So we've had all but one concert cancel through the entire summer through September.
Wow.
So we're looking at a brand new gym in the middle of downtown. I don't know if you all have had a chance to attend a concert there. If you did last summer at the Lurdeson amphitheater, and then there's a smaller side at the Killinger stage, but delayed by weather and all sorts of things. We finally got it open, and this was to be the season that really kicked things off. So that's a real blow to an entity like Waterworks that is privately funded and very much counting on that revenue. So we've turned that around and said, look, there are organizations out there that still have events that need to be held. They need to be social distancing. How do you do that? And where do you do that? And can you do it? Is it socially responsible to do it? So 1,500 acres of Waterworks Park, that's quite a bit of social distancing. So we're in the midst of a campaign to reach out to organizations, ad agencies, event planners, corporate planners, anyone really who may have a need, production companies, you need somewhere to shoot. But, we have this entity available that will never be available again, hopefully, in a summer month into the fall, where right now we basically have a clean calendar. So if you want to have a wedding and you had to put it off a year, which many people did, but you decide now, oh my gosh, all of a sudden I could host a wedding at the amphitheater. Never again will that be an option, probably. Unless you're willing to pay what concerts would have brought in.
Right.
So never say never. But, so we have a unique opportunity in how do we get the message out and who do we target? And immediately, the response has been pretty great. So similarly, a lot of organizations who have had their entire workforce working from home or doing staggered schedules or had to, completely shut down certain sectors of their business. How do you thank them? What do you do for them? What can we, in these nicer summer months? So there's opportunity there too for a corporate, an outing. You can still be 6 feet apart, but scavenger hunts, and you can still have, catered food, and those things can be done in a safe manner. So that's an interesting one. Shannon, you also mentioned the Full Court Press Group. So we've worked with the Full Court Press Group for, since the inception of In Any Event in 2004.
Well, and that's actually how
the only establishments they had open were started, right? Yeah, you know the history, the very first Oktoberfest. So the guys really at that point, they had Buzzard Billy still on Court Avenue, for those people who remember that, before they moved. Well, flooding. Mother Nature, she just can do a doozy on all kinds of businesses. But the Royal Mile was open, and the Hessen House had just opened. El Bait Shop didn't exist. And of course, the myriad of other great establishments they have now weren't in existence. So, that's how we started with them. However, they had two restaurants, one that we just opened on the 3rd, Rita's, that opened actually on the 3rd. And then Crazy Horse is in the Drake area, and that was set to open actually in April as well. So that has yet to open. Again, taking a very challenging situation, but capitalizing on an opportunity, because what a lot of restaurants are seeing is the experience is going to be different, and potentially forever. It will never be the same. Your favorite restaurant where you go for your special occasions or to get together with your buddies or your girlfriends, you may never experience that in the way that you always fondly remembered it. Well, these two establishments weren't open prior to the pandemic. So a great opportunity to have this solidified in their minds as, wow, I love this. And this is how you're not going to ever remember it any other way. The seating will be as such, and the service will be following, safe protocols and so forth. So there are opportunities that are benefits that otherwise, not to say that it isn't an awful situation to have two restaurants that you have sitting waiting to open. You can do a lot of training and quality assurance and team building virtually and so forth. But these guys know what they're doing, and my hats are off to them, because they are industry leaders and are rolling with the punches. And you're going to see quite a few dining and drinking establishments that just won't, frankly, be able to reopen. So yeah, I think that, the restaurant sector has been very creative with the to-go cocktails and cooking classes, and, just trying to be philanthropic as well. You come pick up a to-go meal, we donate a meal to frontline workers. I mean, it's, people are really feeling vulnerable and connected during this time. So I think it's a great opportunity to kind of play it, capitalize on the heartstrings that that are out there, and people just, kind of getting back to their core of humanity.
The people that kind of transition to go in the interim, what were the ones that were successful at it doing?
Well, that, the to-go sector of restaurants traditionally is pretty awful, because you all know it doesn't taste the same unless you live above the restaurant downtown. Well, and everyone wanted to support local and wanted to keep dining out. And I mean, I've never cooked more in my life. Cooking and eating and meal planning. And so it is a way to support everybody locally, your favorite, restaurants, and then take a night off. But so there are people, limited menus, that was a popular, you can't, there are just a lot of things that don't translate well. So I think the people that were trying to be all things to all people still quickly changed their strategy and realized that, let's pick the couple of things that can hold their temperature to a certain extent, and started including reheating instructions, or did partial cook and finish at home, kind of the take and bake philosophy that pizza had perfected and doing it. But, social media, as always, is can be wonderful and it can be awful, reviews and pictures and people posting immediately. So it was almost like that is always the the caveat. And in this era where everyone is just, in front of their computer at all times, feeling that everyone really wants to hear their opinion on their burger, So The food critics are abundant these days. Let's just say.
Well, that's a good question. And actually, I think a lot of people talk about that. How do you get reviews and how do you deal with bad reviews? I
Well,
think in restaurants, it's huge, right?
right, and I'm not going to speak on behalf of Full Court Press in that regard because they do have internal people who handle that. But I can just speak kind of fundamentally from my opinion globally and having owned restaurants that are family restaurants and so forth. So I think that the transparency is important. You see a lot of people deleting posts if they're negative and so forth. So staying on top of it and being honest and trying to it's really no different than any other business, but the bandwagoning is strong, that's for sure. But I think that a lot of times people, they see it as an opportunity to exploit the restaurant. They want a free meal. They want you to post on there that we're sorry your meal was bad. We're going to give that. And then somebody else sees that. And then it's like, oh, well, you gave George. I saw George complain about his brunch. And so it's precarious, but just transparency. And I think that immediate response is important. But we've seen it during this pandemic, even with the produce companies that were doing boxes of produce to be delivered and picked up and so forth. And you're seeing pictures of half rotten produce being posted and like, yeah, that's not okay. So I think our philosophy, and I know the guys at Full Court Press, it's like you almost just have to assume that everything that goes out your door is going to be photographed and posted. That to-go drink, that whatever. It's out there. So so they have a pretty good philosophy about that at Full Court Press as well. They do a really good job with it. But the public is the public, so you're never going to please everybody. And as long as you're doing your best. But that said, when they have niche establishments that are very based in the concept. So the decor matches the menu, matches the right High Life Lounge, perfect example. So does your roasted chicken taste as good at home because you're not at the High Life? And we could go back to my parents' basement. They have wood paneling, but without that, it's kind of like when you go back to your favorite restaurant when you travel. Back when we traveled, and it just doesn't taste the same. Was it because it wasn't the first time you were there, or you're not with the person you were with? Like, and our brains are so, it's so experience based. So it's hard because are you missing the mark with your food, or is it just like the total, the total package there? So there's a lot of components to it.
Yeah, that's really, I think it's the smell of the restaurant, the smell of all the other food and everything that's going on. I notice when I just eat at home, it's missing. It smells like home.
Yeah.
Well, and unfortunately now a lot of the restaurants smell like hand sanitizer and cleaning products.
Yeah, good point.
Right.
Honestly.
Do you want someone with a mask? Do you want it's a medical feel, again, is that something you want in your dining experience?
The ambiance, if the ambiance matters to you now, it like you said, it is forever changed.
Right. At least we're in patio season, but Iowa, that'll last about 6 weeks.
Right. For your other events, we talked a little bit about, are many of them going virtual? Some of them probably don't translate, but.
Right. A lot of our events don't, but some have. So like our Market to Market event is a pretty well-established, popular running event that starts in Jefferson, Iowa, and is a team relay running event. That was to be May 5th. And then ends up downtown Des Moines. So that went virtual. Our festivals, our silent disco events, Pride, that just, officially announced won't happen until next year. In my opinion, and what we're seeing, we have a lot of client events, but then we have events that we own and produce solely as well. Oktoberfest is a great example of that. Do you want to go to an event, even if we can, that won't be the similar to what we were discussing with the dining experience, or would you rather wait a year? I've always had a philosophy that not every event should have to happen every year anyway. You don't see that in this market, but what's wrong with a biannual event? Make them miss it a little bit more and maybe come back stronger and different. September is when that event is held, and that's just this, out of all the summer events that have postponed, have all moved to September.
Oh, geez.
So including like Principal Charity Classic. I mean, every event feels like September is a safe month. Like everyone's just really putting all their eggs in the September basket. But, we haven't made a call on that festival yet, which is the 25th and 26th of September. But I feel strongly that people have really fond memories of how they want that event to look. And it's risky for about 100 other reasons that I won't get into right now with you guys. But most of them are fairly obvious, right? You've got sponsors to take care of. You've got exhibitors to keep safe, and attendees that safety is always our first and foremost. And weather is always a concern. So you're taking a risky event anyway in a perfect world, with the perfect weather situation, and then adding even more risk to it. So it's, there are lots of ways, as you guys have done here, to still connect and make people feel that they're important, their product's relevant. They can still have virtual trade shows are super popular right now. There's a great, you have a virtual exhibition space, and people work their way around the trade show, and they're sending out swag bags, so you're still getting your sample from every exhibitor, just like, only you don't have to go all the way to Vegas to traipse around the trade show floor. So there are opportunities, but our core focus is pretty much grounded in being with thousands of people and being able to eat and drink shoulder to shoulder. And it's tough.
Yeah. How do you, that's so difficult.
Yeah. It's, smart investors diversify, right? So we have all of our eggs are, again, in a similar basket where crowds equal success. It's interesting, even with like the silent disco concept, if you're familiar with that. It's headphones. We've always sterilized them between use. There are products you can buy that go over earphone, the earphone piece, if you will, that almost look like little hair nets that make it even cleaner and more safe, and people could clean their own. But to Shannon's point about if someone's waiting on you with a mask, or, how fun is that to double sterilize your headphones before you go out. But, we are going to get to the point where we can't wait any longer to have some social interaction or have an event. And a silent disco is a way that you could have a giant space. Those headphones have frequencies that go from Court Avenue all the way down to past the Science Center. So, multiple block radius. So you could have a giant event, people spaced out, but it's about the comfort level, where have those been with it? So it's kind of like, that's another entity that we have even other concerns with.
I think that prompts a good question. So how do you, from a marketing standpoint, because I've been to a silent disco event and I get what you're saying, and there can be all the social distancing, but how are you going to overcome, or what kind of efforts do you think you can make to help people get more comfortable with that concept so that, they can take a breath and feel okay with it? Because I think you're right. Most of us are social animals on some level, and we want to get out and have those experiences. But from what do we say in our marketing to get people to feel better about that?
Right. And then assure them that they're safe. And Shannon, that's the big, that's the $1 million question, because until we can start doing it and see how people react and see what feels comfortable, or is that weird, or can that be enjoyable? And is it just enough to, and who wants to be, it's almost like, to make it relevant, the pandemic discussion, the vaccine, who wants to volunteer to test the vaccine? Who wants to be who's our focus group for this? Like, who's willing to,
who's going to sign up to be the guinea pig?
Right. It's so personal. Everyone's handling this situation differently. Some people never change their lifestyle. I haven't set foot in a store since March, but I have an 87-year-old dad that I see every day. So it just, and here I'm the one that's making decisions about trying to bring thousands of people together. And honestly, I don't feel great about it. But I have to think about our audiences and, how do they feel? So then do you do surveys? And, it's just a real tough situation to be in, because then you're letting those people guide your decisions as well.
Yeah.
We're in a unique situation because until July 1st, no public events in Des Moines that involve street closures can be held, legally per se, per the mayor. So when you're following protocol put forth by, the government officials, it's one thing. Then we're going to get into this gray area of who's, risky enough to throw their event and who isn't, and who do you, and then there of course are the political implications, which we're not getting into, but it's just, it's hard to know without just doing it. And so we'll keep you posted, but for now it's a tough one.
Nice.
Well, and it'd be easier if everyone kind of followed the protocol, right? But
right. But then it's like, we've also seen this past week, crowd mentality as well. We can set forth expectations, but the minute somebody is respectful and then they're in your space at the event, and then there's an altercation, and whose responsibility is it? Security? You can just see these things playing out when anyone wants to do is just get back to socializing and having an event experience. So many levels of concern and safety, which I've always prided ourselves on being arguably the safest production company in the market because of all of the precautions that we do take, and they cost extra money and they take extra time, but they're so important. Never did I think I would be conferring with an epidemiologist to help me make business decisions, but I have a call on Monday. I want fact-based, opinions, and so that will help us a little bit too, because I'm not, it's not my area of expertise. So.
Well, and from a business perspective, you want to do the right thing, right? You've been shut down, your events are canceled, and look, it's not a hobby. Everybody's trying to make a living, and these small businesses and corporations even that have events. Everybody wants to take the next step forward, but the affordability comes into play too. That's what's so disappointing about small businesses that have not been open the last 2-3 months. And then you've got people not following protocol and causing damage. And it's like, geez, these guys, everybody's had enough. We don't need any more of this. We want to get to the next phase, but it costs money to do that. And you got to make sure that it doesn't end up poorly.
Right. No, absolutely. And we work with Foundry Distilling Company as well. And so that's another example of, they started handing out free hand sanitizer right away in March. And then we're able to turn that into, without really even the intent, but, they were shrewd about it. And now they're selling hand sanitizer to huge chains. The Fairways and even FedEx is contracting with them so that, because there was such a shortage there initially. So you take a business that traditionally would have been hit pretty hard, a local distillery, just because of the spirits industry, despite the consumption in my household. I don't know how the spirits industry is down, but so it's kind of like, good for you. You took an opportunity and seized it and helped and started, they're kind of like, that's a Cinderella story because their heart was in the right place initially. They were willing to give it all away for free. And then, then they were able to profit. So that's a real great uncommon story.
A good example.
Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say, we have a question from the audience. That is, do you think virtual experiences will become more commonplace for future events, even when in-person events resume?
I do, because I think that there will, and again, it depends if there's travel involved and so forth, but I think so many of us in our lives have spent so many hours in airports and traveling and hotels, and I think that, we're going to see the travel industry continue to take a major hit because people are going to perfect this, similar to people working from home. I think productivity for the most part. If you see that stayed somewhat, I'm sure you guys have looked at that too with your team. If you're able to work from home and you can work from home and you're getting your work done, like, this works. So I do think that will be a trend. And I think that there will still be those people that want that. I think it'll be a combination, to be honest. You want the speaker that you want to hear and connect with those 2 vendors that you actually care about, and, check that off your list and go back to life. Like, that sounds kind of amazing, instead of having to invest 4 days to get to a trade show and get home. And, so I think that's going to be, in my opinion, and from what I've read as well, the industry that's hit the hardest, or at least will evolve the most, will be, like the trade show component.
Yeah, I heard an interesting statistic that the trade show, being able to take them virtually, a lot of the experiences can be very good. But the component that's missing from all of the virtual side is that face-to-face, the get together for, the breakfasts, the lunches, the cocktail parties, that socialization.
Yeah. Who's going to kiss up to me tonight after the meeting, right? Like, I need that steak. Who's buying it? No, you're right. And that's been, the sales aspect, and we're all really familiar with how that works too. That is what differentiates a lot of businesses: the service, the connections, the chemistry that you have with your clients and your customers. And I think Applied Art is a great example of, you guys have that and have for years and have kept it and kept loyal clients. And
I had a question, but I forgot what it was.
Uh-oh.
I do have the thing, are face masks going to be a fashion accessory we're all going to have? And do you have one where I can drink and wear a face mask?
There are. Yeah, they do have the ones that have the hole for your straw. So yes, I can send you a link. You're seeing logoed. I get 5 to 6 emails or texts a day from companies that are, wanting to brand hand sanitizer and masks and pens that deflect germs. It's just, they've really taken the opportunity to say, like, we want to keep you safe and your guests safe. Here's how you're doing it. I mentioned the headphone covers for, I think that, it depends on the market as well. I mean, I just got an email about a community in Colorado that is still mandating, if you're in public, that you wear a mask.
It's very uncomfortable. I find it very suffocating. I had to put one on the other day, and I had a hard time breathing. It was it was very awkward.
Yeah, that's one of the issues, obviously, with them.
So it's going to be one of those, do we have the right to say you can't come in to our event unless you're wearing a mask?
Mm-hmm.
Because that makes me comfortable and it makes my staff comfortable. And if you're not comfortable with that, then I'm sorry. And so then what kind of rights are we violating? And, I've had these discussions with our insurance company as well. And I know my husband just reopened his office, and everyone's very afraid more than ever. We live in a very litigious society,
Mm-hmm.
So someone comes to our event and feels they can trace their contracting the virus back to Oktoberfest. Yeah. So what kind of coverage do I have for that?
Yeah, right.
Please charge me more for insurance. I need pandemic insurance. So I think time will tell, George. I think, as all Iowans do, life revolves around football and the Iowa State Fair. They've said that they're making a decision by June 15th, whether the Iowa State Fair will be held or not. I think it'll be very interesting to see what happens with that, and also then who follows suit by saying, oh, well, we're going to have the fair, then fill in the blank. Or you can go the other way. Oh my gosh, we're having the fair, so you can expect another outbreak and everyone to go 6 months backwards, and here we go again.
Mm-hmm.
If you're only sending your kids to school half time, theoretically, I know, there's so many scenarios being tossed around and nobody knows what will happen. Do you feel comfortable getting a babysitter and going out to an event? I mean, does that seem like something that is prudent? I don't know. We have, a lot of questions.
The thing I remember the question I was going to ask, you talked about when you don't have a live face-to-face, you go to an event, a virtual event, and you miss the sort of schmoozing part. So is there creative ways to schmooze remotely?
I think a lot of that depends on if it's within your market. We were talking about the to-go cocktails, and some people have really nailed that. The packaging, if you've seen people posting on social media, the mason jars with the garnishes that are,
some of them look better than they actually look when they get served in the restaurant, to tell you the truth.
Exactly. They're so perfectly curated. So, why couldn't you have, this is off the top of my head, but like, why couldn't you deliver something like that to your clients? This kind of getting back to basics. It's almost like who wrote a handwritten thank you note recently. Maybe you guys have, because you're great at that kind of thing. But yes, it's HCN and you have. But most people can say, no, I haven't. When was the last time you delivered baked goods from a local bakery to somebody? Or, and those things can be shipped. So I do think it's just kind of getting back to the basics and kind of having that aha moment where you didn't expect anything but whatever you ordered from Amazon to arrive today. But, oh my gosh, this vendor or, whomever sent me this perfectly curated gift that, kind of feels like.
I think it's a great idea, and I'm a big proponent of it. One of the issues that's come up for me, because I wanted to send some thank you gifts to some folks that have helped us out, and I have to ask for their home address because they're all working from home.
Right. Yeah.
And that's just another thing. And I know that's reflective of the comfort level. And so it hasn't been an issue, but there have been times when you're still building the relationship. So not completely comfortable,
Hey, I'm going to run by your house. Yeah.
Yeah. The drive by drop off, but then, you don't want it sitting in an office that there's not going to be anybody at for another 2 months. Cause that's silly. You've got those key moments. And so it's a little, you can't even, my friend just had major back surgery and I couldn't even send him flowers. The hospitals aren't, you can't even do that. So you're really having to think outside the box.
Get creative. But I think it's back to basics, just doing the right thing and doing, the smart thing or what you can do when you can. So I think that the communication, the number of emails that we all got that all started out with the same sentence, this finds you safe and well, or, you know what I mean? It's just like, oh my gosh, I can't read another one. You may have something really important to say to me. But to break through that clutter on Facebook and email marketing and all of that right now is just, more important than ever. And, I'll say nearly impossible. So, you guys are the experts, what the arena that we're in. So I'm curious.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, for people that are on and inclined to join in the chat, how comfortable are you all attending an event, in the near future? Let's just say in September. How would you know? But I just, it's pretty polarizing on Facebook when you see people like, I would never in a million years go, or like, yes, I'm there, So it's like, is anyone willing to say their comfort level with events? It's different than dining out. It's not,
I would.
Yeah. With safely. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't want to wear a mask because I've just recently had to do that and was really, really uncomfortable. But I would, an outdoor activity for sure. I don't think I would be bothered by it.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't know. That just doesn't.
Well, if we send out a formal survey, I'll make sure to include you all.
Yeah, there we go. Yes.
Well, George and Mark, you didn't answer. What's your comfort level, do you think?
I think it's going to be dependent on more of the national and state, what's happening. Also, what is my plans coming up over the next span of time? For example, like, Mindy says her 85-year-old father. Well, if I'm going to see my 82-year-old father, I probably wouldn't in the 2 weeks prior to that, just to make sure that I'm not bringing anything. if I'm going to go see someone that's at risk, I would probably not attend something, or I would postpone my seeing them until after, a self-quarantine period. But, right before this whole thing started in early March, I was in Las Vegas at a trade show. So, taking the prudent thing, and then the whole time coming, being there wasn't such an issue. You wash your hands more, you were a lot more cognizant of what you were doing. There wasn't masks really yet available for that. But on the backside, when I came back, that was before there was a stay-at-home order, if possible, here in Iowa. I self-quarantined myself. So
Right.
I think there's so many more factors anymore and I think it's going to be age dependent of, all right, what am I going to be doing after that may affect this?
Yeah, very interesting.
So
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. It kind of depends on the event first. What's my level risk reward ratio there? I think it's important. The problem with like COVID is you can't see it. So it's really easy to forget it's around.
Right.
And you almost have to assume everybody has it. And I think the issue is, like Mark was saying, it's maybe, if you're younger and healthier, you're probably less likely to have issues. But who else are you going to come in contact with?
Right.
Your 80-year-old next door neighbor you just happen to pass by, or what? So
That's true.
So I think
That's
I think it takes the spontaneity out of, events. I think, it's interesting, Iowa State for their football, currently, 50% occupation or occupancy.
Occupancy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then no game day ticket sales, no individual game ticket sales. So they're taking the spontaneity out of it, which is, for live events, you plan, you want to attend, can I attend? But, that's a whole side of live events that, it's like, hey, yeah, I'm going to go see that artist downtown tonight. So.
Right. Yeah. Taking that profit potential out of it from, the other side of the fence are just, again, so many, just because you can doesn't mean that you should. And then, it just, there's a lot more to it, but I like hearing your perspectives, because that adds the complexity. And I think that you're obviously intelligent people that make decisions that are grounded in logic, and not everyone does. But I think that a lot of people aren't looking that far ahead. They're thinking about today, and not, to your point, Mark, like most people aren't thinking 14 days in advance if they are going to visit somebody who, honestly, 60 and over is and so, yeah, I'm not quite there yet, but my husband is, it's like, oh my gosh. Although he can do the at-risk shopping in the morning. Our groceries, dear. Happy birthday. So yeah, it's a bummer. It really is. But I think we all are done kind of crying about it, and like, we're going to roll up our sleeves and move on. But it's very soon to be moving on. And to be honest, it's already been a really bad year for a lot of us. So it's kind of like, why not just ride out another really crappy year and try to, hopefully hit refresh in 2021 on some of these annual events that that will be more safe and less risky, hopefully, and kind of go from there. So yeah, we'll have.
And maybe we'll know a whole lot more about this, how it's transmitted, and the immunity and the ability to get tested. Who knows? So many questions right now.
So many questions, very few answers, lots of speculation. So,
but I think the overarching theme with all this is, it doesn't matter if it's a pandemic or if it's legislation or whatever. You just have to be creative. You just can't think that what you're doing is going to work always. Once everybody starts doing it, then it's going to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, it's like she said, and it's about, seeking new opportunities, new creative ways to do things, and not getting stuck. And I've said this many times, the emotional contagion where everybody just kind of feeds off of each other and the panic metastasizes and it makes it even worse. It's hard to not have personal interaction, but we just got to keep our heads down and keep moving and stay as positive as you can.
Yeah, no, and Iowans are great at that. You know, we're a hardy group, which I think has come around a little bit to be maybe not necessarily the past, because you almost feel like, oh, well, this isn't happening to us right here in the heartland.
Yeah.
But you know, it will come back to be a positive, because we, I think we're a pretty resilient group. And so we'll see for sure, but I sure appreciate you guys having me today.
Yeah, it was great to talk to you. Great to see you again.
Great to see you all. And
Thanks, Mindy. We really appreciate you being part of this, and we will talk to you soon.
you bet. Take care. We'll let you know when we're back up and running.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Invited.
There we go.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Have a great
Thanks.
weekend.